Welcome to our webinar focusing on cybersecurity. Before we get started, just a few things to run through. Please can you all keep yourselves on mute so we don't get any background noise. But if you keep your camera on, that would be brilliant, and then we can see you as we're going through. The webinar will be recorded and we'll share this with you after the event. And as you have any questions, just feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll pick them up towards the end. So before we get started, it's always good to know what to expect. So first, I'll show a simulation of a cybersecurity incident. Then I'll dissect the incident and look through some of the solutions and best practices that could have helped to reduce the impact and avoid the incident altogether. Chris from the Jensten group will talk you through cyber insurance and how that can protect you should the worst happen. And finally, I'll give a sneak peek into our SOC offering, which will be launching later this quarter. First, let's take a look at some stats. As you can see, the potential costs of a cyber attack are incredibly high, and the frequency of attacks is increasing year on year. To best illustrate the risks of you as a business, I prepared a scenario to run through. Now I'm going to run you through this hypothetical incident we've created. So this is at a legal practice, and basically it's all based on real world methods and techniques that hackers use to actually disrupt businesses. So first, let's set the scene with the people who work at the company in question. We've got Tom, who's a legal executive, Carl, who's the chief commercial officer, Sarah from IT support, and Lisa from the finance team. So we start with Tom, who's working away on a busy Wednesday morning. He receives an email asking him to update his password. He's well aware of how important it is to keep your passwords changed regularly, so he clicks the link and thinks nothing of it. After clicking the link, he sees a familiar looking page and he starts to enter his login details, including his password. He's then presented with a reassuring message and goes about his day. Little does he know he's just sent his details to a hacker. Looking at things from the hacker's point of view, they've received an email with all the details that Tom just submitted. Now he's going to try and use this information to log in and take a look around Tom's account. With full access to Tom's account, they review emails and build a profile on Tom, looking for the best way to use the account to exploit the business. After completing research, the hacker decides to try and use this information to trick the accounts team into making a fraudulent payment by sending an email from Tom's account. Back to Lisa in the finance team. She's now received this email from Tom and she's going to have a look and see what she needs to do with it. Finance and admin staff are often targeted by cyber impersonation attacks. So Lisa has recently been on mandatory cybersecurity training. She knows to always check for new payment details and calls Tom to check it's legitimate. After Tom claims he didn't send the email, Lisa forwards it on to IT. Sarah in the IT team receives the email from Lisa and starts to follow the process for a compromised account. After speaking with Tom to find out what happened, Sarah continues to follow the process, resetting the password and signing him out of all sessions. She then sends an email advising staff of the situation and warning them about clicking links. Unfortunately, the hacker was one step ahead. They'd anticipated that the setup of a new payment may be spotted and drafted an email delayed send in the event they were found. This means they can continue the attack even after they were signed out. The hacker's email is received by users across the company. Unfortunately, Lisa, assuming that Tom's account is now secured, clicks the link. Fortunately, the company has recently installed a next generation firewall. The threat is detected and she's unable to download the file. A few weeks ago, though, after the firewall was installed, the chief commercial officer, Carl, has been having issues. Since the firewall was installed, he's not been able to access users to book things. He asked IT to bypass his account so he could book a fishing trip. This leaves him with no protection in place and he's able to download the malicious file. This instantly installs ransomware on his device. Before he has a chance to pick up the phone to IT, it's already spreading around the network, encrypting machines. And therefore, IT are left no choice but to unplug all the devices on the network to reduce the spread of the ransomware. As they only had standard antivirus, they had to constantly trace through the network, so they couldn't risk machines that they didn't think were infected on the network, so they had to look to restore from a backup. Unfortunately, during a recent migration to a new data center, the IT team had removed the virtual air gap between the production network and the one where the backups reside, and this allowed the ransomware to spread, encrypting all the backups. This left the company with no digital data at all. This uncoverable chain of events led to the closure of the company. As you can see, devastating set of events that can all happen very quickly. Now, I'm going to take a look through the timeline of the attack, stopping to discuss the technology and procedures that could have stopped the attack or at least minimize the impact on the business. So first, let's start with threat prevention. This utilizes real-time monitoring to prevent threats before they can cause damage. In our scenario here, when the link was received by the user, had they had correctly configured threat prevention policies from products such as Mimecast or Microsoft Defender, the malicious login site would have been blocked and it would have stopped Tom from entering his details. Next, we move on to MFA and SSO. I'm sure you're all aware of the benefits of multi-factor authentication, but again, had the company configured, it would have reduced the risk of the attack. Ensuring that users have strong passwords combined with additional factor of security adds another line of defense. And also, it's important to consider how your staff access all the applications that they use in the day-to-day business. Introducing single sign-on not only makes things easier for staff, but it also allows them to be vigilant for rogue login process. Hopefully, you're already seeing that there's no guaranteed way to protect yourself from a cyber attack, but the more layers you have in place, the less risk there is to your organization. Endpoint detection and response and extended detection and response continually monitor your IT environment looking for threats. EDR primarily focus on endpoint devices, with XDR providing a more comprehensive protection, analyzing network traffic and other sources. EDR and XDR can also be incredibly useful in the event there is an attack. As we saw in our example, they weren't able to have confidence where the virus had spread to. So if they had tools like this, EDR and XDR can provide invaluable information to collect during recovery and exactly what happened and where it spread across the network. As we saw in the example, security training helped avoid sending money directly to the hacker. Products are available that educate your users on the risks, what they should look out for, as well as running live tests against your users on a regular basis, giving them the opportunity to learn from mistake and increase training. Security optimization allows you to review your security position, and it's just as important as getting things set up in the first place. As we saw in the scenario, sometimes systems are bypassed, and it's better to find out these vulnerabilities so they can be resecured before they are exploited. Specialized tools used by security experts help locate vulnerabilities and provide the opportunity to mitigate the risks ahead of time. A security operations center provides a team of highlighted, trained experts who work around the clock, detecting, preventing, responding, and securing threats as they occur. This can keep your business safe and can monitor in the event there is a threat that's unfolding, protecting you from things as soon as possible. It's also essential to ensure that backups are protected and isolated from your working environment. This ensures that should the worst happen, your business data can be recovered. I'm just going to hand over to Chris now to run through some slides on cybersecurity and insurance.
Thank you very much. Yeah, everybody, my name's Chris Barnfather. I'm an account director at Jensten Insurance Brokers for our FinPro team, who we are specialising in financial lines. So that's professional indemnity, directors and officers, cyber, medical malpractice and transactional risks. The team is made up by sector specialists. We are based around the country. I'm currently in London. We have UK international placement teams that place Lloyd's of London and in the London market, as well as regional markets. So what I'm going to do today is just sort of give you an overview of what a cyber policy is and how it will respond in a claim. This is an actual real claim that happened. Obviously, details have been removed about the identity of the claimant, but the sums and the coverage and how it reacted is part of this presentation. So first of all, I'm just going to quickly run over how a cyber policy is put together, and I'll do this in a very straightforward way, and I'll break it down into three particular parts. Some people will use the term first party and third party terms. Basically, a first party term is anything that happens to you, and third party will be anything that you are potentially liable for. Okay, I tend to break it down into the functions in how they would operate in a claim. So the first part I will cover off here is breach response. So this is what happens in the event of a cyber incident. Someone gets into your system, you then speak to the insurance claims team, who will then advise you accordingly. Breach response, the first port of call will be breach counsel. These will be international law firms who specialize in cyber incidents happening to firms ranging from micro SMEs up to FTSE 100 companies. They specialize in all the legal aspects around a breach. So they'll be here to advise you on data protection laws, and this will be based on worldwide data protection laws. They can also advise on things like ransomware negotiation. They will never turn around and say you should pay this, but they will give you the legal position on this. Also, within the breach response, you'll get the forensic IT investigation costs. So this will be a specialist team, usually an in-house team, or if not, a team that is specifically engaged with that insurance company, who will look at the detail of how the incident happened and how they can mitigate it and stop the spread in these cases. And lastly, we also have public relations costs. There have been a number of incidents where someone has talked prior to the full investigation happening, and it's been at the detriment of the company. So the PR team will come in, they will advise the best course of action in terms of the message that you put out, whether that's to the general public, the regulators, or anyone within the business world. On to the next part is the notification services. What these are is essentially if you get a breach, then it helps deal with the notification to either the regulators or the individuals involved. And this will include setting up call centers, providing staff for call centers should there be any large scale response. And depending on the type of data that's been stolen, we see it in quite a number of cases when we're dealing with financial services firms, particularly, or legal firms, is ongoing credit monitoring, ID protection and restoration services. And these can go on for 2-3 years in some instances. So the costs associated with them can spiral a fair bit. The last part that we just discussed is what I would call the insurance protection part. So just there you go. So these are all the costs that would be reimbursed to you or paid out on your behalf, really. So the first part is the loss of business income. This obviously is a little bit more tangible if you say run an online shop. If it's an interruption to your income, it's worked out with the tax team that the insurer will do. So potential loss of income, and if any of your digital assets need restoring or rebuilding, then this is part of the loss that we'll take into account on here as well. Cyber extortion is obviously the payment and the negotiation for payment of a ransomware. Cybercrime is any financial loss that you suffer as a result of social engineering, etc., invoice manipulation, these sorts of things. What you tend to see with some in policies is with certain industries, particularly accountants and lawyers, these limits tend to be limited somewhat because of the coverage that is provided by the regulator in terms of client money handling. Privacy and security liability is the liabilities that you have for breach of privacy or data security. Regulatory investigation is exactly what it says, is costs associated with bringing the evidence for regulatory investigation. Multimedia liability is any defamation, slander claims that can come from there, and obviously the preparation costs for claims itself. There are a number of different coverages that I left off here, but these are the sort of main factors here. So if we just go on to the next slide, I'll just talk about a particular claim that we dealt with. As I say, I'm leaving this vague, obviously for the clients reference, but they are happy and have said that they're happy to use this in terms of the examples here. So the professional services firm were purchasing a 1 million limit. Now this is an aggregate limit, so it's during the course of the policy year. The maximum that will be paid out is 1 million. The revenue of the company was 1.5 million. The extent of the claim was it was a double extortion ransomware. So basically, the hackers got in, shut down the system, locked it off, and exfiltrated 20,000 customer PII records. So if we just go on to the next slide, then I'll just go through what happened in this case and the sort of figures that were paid out in this. So if we go on the first part, instant response. So as soon as it happened, the managing director contacted the claims team at the insurer via apps. Most people use apps now, and they tend to say to segregate it from their system, because some hackers will get in and actually shut down phones before they go after the main system, so to stop any sort of response. So they used the app, contacted them. The forensic IT team came in and dealt with all of the forensic costs that were in there. That was £25,000. The PR team, again, helped with delivering the message. This included getting out into local papers and media dissemination. Again, £10,000 for that. And then the last part, breach counsel. So part of this was advisory. As you know, lawyers' fees tend to be rather expensive. So this was all about advising them on where they stood in regards to the law around the breach, 25,000. Notification, they had to notify the regulator, obviously the ICO and the FCA, and they had to notify the customers that were breached. That was £30,000. The costs associated with the credit and monitoring, and this went on for 2.5 years because of the information that was taken, £125,000. In terms of the insurance protection, we had to fork out for some defence costs, 55,000. The loss that was quantified on this because of the downtime was seen at 20 grand. Okay, and part of that was reputational loss that was included within that loss. The extortion expenses, the original extortion, the ransomware was £100,000. They managed to negotiate it down to 50. That was the ransomware negotiation team. The restoration for their digital assets was 50 grand. And that was the total claim of £390,000. What happened with that one is the client, obviously, without that, when I spoke to them post-claim, they would have said, I wouldn't have had a clue what to do without the direction of, one, the breach counsel, who are specifically there to set up all of this in the event of a crisis. The other thing to note here is this company turns over 1.5 million, so a reasonable size company. They, however, had the backing from an insurance company that has assets worth 90 billion. So I think the main point to take away from this is, no matter what size company you are, you have the backing of a company with far and reaching protection. The best law firms are usually on the panel for these, the best IT response teams, PR teams that are specifically there for crisis situations. So all of these are there to assist in this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. As you can see, should your business fall victim to an attack, costs can very quickly rack up, and the right insurance policy could be essential. As highlighted by Chris, a cyber insurance policy can help your business should the worst happen. But when taking on a policy, they'll expect you to have a baseline security posture, which is getting more and more stringent year on year. It's better to get ahead of the curve by reviewing your security regularly and filling any gaps as they arise. So let's take a look at the cybersecurity challenge. As you see in the scenario we've just run through, security is constantly changing landscape, and it's very hard to keep track of. There's no single solution that eliminates cyber risk, so it's important to take multiple layers of defense. Taking the risk and complexity into account, it's really worth considering placing your security management in the hands of experts. With that in mind, I'm going to run through some slides on the latest Raspberry security services, which will be available to customers this quarter. A Security Operations Center, often shortened to SOC, is a centralized function responsible for managing the security posture of an organization, preventing, detecting, and responding to threats. By processing threat intelligence and performing proactive security, a SOC can improve the security posture by reducing the attack surface of an organization. Additionally, a SOC team can monitor data from multiple sources and analyze them to prevent cybersecurity hacks in real time. Based on our expertise and feedback from our clients, we've created 3 bolt-on products, which will each provide additional layers of security and protection against cyber attacks. First, we start with managed IT, which combined with patch management ensures that your IT systems are kept up to date, reducing the risk of unpatched applications with security vulnerabilities. Managed IT is a prerequisite for all of these security offerings, as to provide advanced security, we have to start with a strong foundation. Next, Prevent, which is our first product available, which provides proactive scanning and bundled professional services, where we'll regularly make enhancements to optimize your security configuration. Prevent also includes user awareness training to help your staff know the risks and what to look out for. Detect and Response is our managed detection and response bolt-on. This provides a 24/7 security operations center, a team who will monitor your environment using industry-leading tools and respond in the event there is any suspicious activity. Finally, Assure provides a fully managed Cyber Essentials Plus management, looking after the audit and making sure that month on month your systems are kept in good standing. We might wrap it up there, and feel free obviously to reach out to your account manager if you do have any. Thanks very much.